the entire African electricity and power sector, innovators, business strategies, and prospective industry trends is what will be outlined at the forthcoming African Power Industry Conference. Welcome back. You're still tuned to Business Review right here on SABC News International. Thank you so much for staying with us. We're discussing an upcoming African Utility Week. And before the break, we looked at the current state of the power industry in South Africa with my guest, Nicholas McDiarmid. He's an expert on African power industry and also an editor of ESI Africa, a power trade journal. Nicholas, once again, thank you so much for staying with us. Now, just before the break, you're making mention about the independent power producers. And maybe let's try to find out the relationship of them and the government. You made mention that Bobby Gottsel and Jacob Marocha, how they said this and worked differently. Maybe let's delve even further. What is the current relationship between government and PPIs?
Well, let's look at IPP's relationship with the government of South Africa at this stage. Essentially, they're feeling very disappointed. Government from the year 2000 onwards really looked towards independent power producers as one of the solutions to their desire not to spend on new build projects, which, and let's face it, new build projects in the power sector are some of the most expensive public expenditures you'll ever encounter. However, government did not use the revenue from Eskom or indeed taxpayers' money for those purposes. That money seemed to be earmarked for projects which really turned out not to be in the public interest. IPPs have been sitting in the wings, waiting for permission to come in, waiting for a regulatory environment, particularly as far as tariffs are concerned, to be able to run a profitable business. But we need to understand something, both in South Africa and the rest of the continent, and that is, in the rest of the world, in Europe, in America, in Australia, most consumers are able to pick and choose which power producer they choose to buy from. It is their choice. They do not run in monopolistic societies. On top of which, that is not to say that these environments are not regulated. Many instances in the United States have proven that a non-regulated, completely free market when it comes to essential services like electricity is not a good thing. It needs regulation. However, it also needs liberalization. And it needs a blend of the two. And we need to stop looking at these issues in a black and white manner, much as we need to stop looking at renewable energies versus coal energy in a black and white manner. We need to look at creative mixes of the two, which is what the rest of the world is doing. And we need to catch up. We need to do that now. As far as IPPs are concerned, given the correct environment and the correct tariff structures, they would start building tomorrow.
You're speaking about the correct environment, Nicholas. What is the correct environment?
The correct environment is one in which, number one, Eskom no longer acts or is no longer mandated as the sole purchaser of power. This would be an instance where not only could private industry purchase its power from perhaps a more viable supplier or a more consistent supplier, but also one with whom they can strike long-term economic deals or power purchase deals. This is an instance where private consumers can pick and choose which power producer they wish to buy from at specific rates, and also with new creative technologies such as time of use rates, which essentially means that you use electricity at different hours and the prices change according to demand. You can therefore manage your bill a lot more effectively. Independent power producers should also be able to sell directly to local distributors, in our case, local municipalities who distribute, in a fair and equitable and competitive environment. At the moment, this is not the case.
Okay, let's talk about maybe climate change with regards to this. As much as you're making mention that Eskom is maybe the sole provider at the moment, alternative energies, I mean solar energy, hydropower station, possibilities, I know that it's inevitable, but when will this come into play?
Well, you certainly find, you know, small instances of it already in development. Recently, the Bill Clinton Foundation has committed to building a very significant solar project in South Africa. South Africa has some of the highest, if not the highest, solar radiation levels in the world, indicating that with the correct investment and the correct strategy, and quite frankly, simply the will, we could become fairly reliant on solar power in a meaningful and sustainable way.
So
I think that's not up for debate anymore.
Okay, as much as not up for debate anymore, in this conference, I know some of these subjects will be covered, but then how influential is the conference in terms of ensuring that resolutions taken at the conference can be implemented?
Each year, the conference produces report back sessions, and they report back year on year. Now, a year-on-year report back seems a long time, but one of the key differences with Power in Durban and African Utility Week is that all delegates and all presenters, and indeed all the delegations that arrive from the highest levels of ministries across the continent, and indeed the ministers of energy who support and attend the conference, they have begun giving feedback year on year with specific deliverables. And certainly we are seeing more traction take place. There's essentially a sense that Power in Durban and African Utility Week have created an environment of peer pressure, peer-driven development. No ministry can be seen to be left behind in Africa at this stage. The ministry that is left behind is the ministry that's in charge of a sinking ship economically. And as a core driver of the economy, the energy industry and the energy ministries cannot lag. And Power in Durban very much has become a forum on the African continent where peer motivation, in almost the same way as the peer-to-peer or Africa peer-to-peer feedback mechanism, which Thabo Mbeki initiated, this is very much the same as regards energy. But the key thing here, and this is where I caution both the ministry and Eskom, is to do away with the spin. I think that we need enough respect and we need enough confidence that we can not only detect when reality and truth is not being told, but that we can also handle the truth and that we're only going to move forward with it.
Okay. Nicholas, I gotta thank you so much for being our guest in Cape Town.